What are you guys doing to help us with the student loan debt? Who would like to answer first? Mr. Monahan, Big Bank.
We stopped making student loans in 2007 or so.
Oh, so you don't do it anymore. Mr. Corbett?
We exited student lending in 2009.
Mr. Diamond?
When the government took over student lending in 2010 or so, we stopped doing all student lending.
All right, that was a surprise to Maxine Waters. It was billed as an event that she was going to grill these bank CEOs. By the way, she ultimately did, as did the majority Democratic panel. Even a couple of Republicans were going after these guys. But she got a key fact wrong, and it does raise issues about what the tone and tenor will be going forward. Democratic strategist Jessica Tarlov back with us. Alexandra Wilkes, America Rising Senior Vice President, and our own Kat Timpf. Kat, it was a sort of oops moment for her. She tried to, rebound by saying, well, maybe you should be looking at this sort of thing, but what do you think?
Yeah, it was definitely an oops moment, but I don't think that many people are focusing on it. If you look at who's the bad guy in the situation, most people are looking at the banks saying, why did you give all this money to people who you know can't pay it back? But what I've always wondered is why there's no personal responsibility in these situations. Like, I didn't go to grad school because I knew I couldn't afford to go to grad school, and I knew I couldn't pay back $80,000 on a journalist's salary, that wasn't going to happen. So
Is this your way of asking for a raise?
This is my way of saying yes, absolutely.
Send me to school.
I would like to continue my education.
All right, says Miss Oxford over here. Now, do you get a sense, Jessica, that, she's maybe not up to this job? She hasn't studied up on this job?
No, I don't think so at all. And I think that the clip of her with Steve Mnuchin proves the other side of that. He had I would say, a bad
We're gonna show
interaction.
that one. I think, Pam, we have that. But if we still have it, because you're raising a good point. That was the other good one. This is an exchange with the Treasury Secretary of the United States. Take a look. I promise.
I've sat here for over 3 hours and 15 minutes. I've told you I'll come back. I just don't believe we're sitting here negotiating when I come back. We'll follow up with your office. How long would you like me to come back for next time? I've told you I'll accommodate you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your reminding us of the length of time other secretaries have been here. This is a new way. And it's a new day, and it's a new chair, and I have the gavel at this point. If you wish to leave, you may. What would you like to do?
What I've told you is I thought it was respectful that you'd let me leave at 5:15.
You are free to leave anytime you want. You may go anytime you want.
Please dismiss everybody. I believe you're supposed to take the gavel and bang it.
Please do not instruct me as to how I'm to conduct this committee.
She seemed pretty on it there, and I think it's a mistake for anyone to be telling a chair what they should be doing with their gavel.
She said in the earlier part of it, I run this.
She
said in the gravel.
Wait a minute, she said in the early part of that, I control this gavel and all, and then I decide the rules, and then later on she says, well, go if you want to go. Come on.
No, I don't think so. And also, I don't know what.
No, we just played it.
No, I think that Maxine Waters came out the winner in that, especially because Steve Mnuchin was talking about some more important appointment that he had at 5:15, which I have never seen anyone in a congressional.
You can't get to the bottom of something in 3 hours?
I don't think so. I mean, how many hours have people testified before? No problem with Maxine Waters there.
Do you know what the percentage of time his talking versus all these congressmen talking at him? It was 10-1.
I have zero pity for Steve Mnuchin.
Do you have zero pity for the American taxpayer that has to endure this nonsense?
I'm the American taxpayer, and I paid more in tax. That's what I wanted to follow up with in the first segment. Not happy.
Okay, I'm looking at this, Alexandra, and every time I see something like this, it's all for political partisanship. I get that. Jessica's right on that, on the left or the right here. But if you can't get to the bottom of something or whatever's, pissing you off in more than 3 hours, then maybe there's a problem here.
These hearings have become all about the YouTube moment. Every congressman wants that viral moment where they look good to their base and they can send it out and they can, feel good about themselves. And I think that that's sort of what Maxine Waters was trying to achieve here. But I think if we take a step back and we remember before the 2018 midterms, everyone looked sort of polite and restrained behind the podiums and seated up there. But Maxine Waters was unhinged before the 2018 elections. In fact, a lot of Democrats were trying to sort of rein her in because she was making comments about attacking Trump supporters in public places. Right. And so,
Well, she's been sort of out unhinged by the Alexandra Ocasio-Cortezes, right? She doesn't look as extreme by comparison, right?
Well, I mean, I think that it could be extreme in this setting if they continue to go after the president in sort of these invasive ways. If it goes beyond sort of the normal checks and balances of Congress on the executive branch and it goes to, political witch hunts, I don't think that that's something that American people are going to be responsive to.
Okay, let's be fair here. If you're going to talk about these committees being politicized, we can certainly go back to the Obama years and watch how 11 hours Hillary Clinton testified about Benghazi, and then Kevin McCarthy, Trey Gowdy, all admitted that this actually was because of politics and that they were happy.
So Mnuchin should have endured another 8 hours.
Again, no pity for Steve Mnuchin coming from me. I think that you have to be polite and you have to understand what is within the purview of these committees. What Neil did asking for Trump's tax returns is within his purview to do. They shall furnish them. This isn't maybe you should furnish the tax returns.
Well, now
I'll
they're
think
saying
about
by the 23rd.
I am waiting. I will be here.
She's referring to Richard Neal, the guy who runs the House Ways and Means Committee. Where do you think, real quickly, they're going on that?
Well, I think that I kind of agree with you, right? I think that when Democrats attack Trump or his administration, it fires up the Democratic base. They're cheering each other on while they're doing it. But I think it pushes Trump supporters closer to Trump because they see it as Democratic bullying. And I think that they've become even more emboldened with that ever since the Russia investigation didn't find any evidence of collusion. I think that they're saying, oh, so look, this is just more of the same. I think that's the way Trump supporters tend to view these things.
Well, we all see it through a political prism one way or the other here, and that's something that I'm going to raise with my next guest amid talk that the Mueller report could come out maybe in a matter of days, maybe in a matter of minutes, maybe during this very show. Doesn't that keep you watching? Congressman who's watching it very closely after this. Yeah, they are acknowledging at least it's pressure city along the border. Thank you, Jillian, very, very much. And to illustrate that, just last month, 103,000 people were apprehended or turned away at the border. That represented a better than 12-year high. This amid reports a caravan of varying sizes, I don't know who to believe, is on its way as well. So there's the concern that this is a problem that is going unaddressed. Let's get right to it with our guest, Alexandra Wilkes. We've also got Jessica Tarlov and Katherine Timpf. Kat, back and forth we go, but the crisis persists.
Right, absolutely. And the saddest thing is to see that it's been made into a almost strictly political issue, right? I feel like people discuss the things only that prop up their side, whether there's a crisis or not a crisis, rather than dealing with the fact that there clearly are some problems, right? But a lot of Democrats, they don't really want President Trump. I'm not saying all, but a lot of Democrats don't really want President Trump to get a win on something like the wall. So they're politically motivated to try to minimize any problems that do come up.
That sounds like you, Jessica.
A little bit, actually.
Yeah, I want to be clear, I was talking specifically about Jessica.
Yes, just to
Only Jessica. Only Democrat in America.
Yeah.
You are correct, though, and it has become a horribly politicized issue framed around the wall. We have spoken less about the wall, though, in the past month or so, which I think is a good thing, and that has maybe given Democrats more of a gateway to have a conversation about the varying crises on the border. And Jay Johnson, in his interview with you, actually pointed out 3 different crises, including the ones that are going on in Central America right now, and how that relates to our discussion about cutting aid to those countries. If you're trying to keep people there and in a better quality of life, that should be part of it. Fixing the asylum system has to happen. I liked hearing Nancy Pelosi bring up comprehensive immigration reform again. We haven't talked about that.
Right. It's like a buzzword of the past.
Right, and it comes up usually around elections, but we're 100 days in now, and if House Democrats would control can focus on that will put pressure on the Senate to maybe get the Gang of 8 back together.
Do you think they're that serious about that? House Democrats will do this when, in fact, that there's no political upside for them?
Well, comprehensive immigration and reform, in the way that it had been framed in the past with the Gang of 8 and the Gang of 6, did include a pathway to citizenship or at least legal status. So,
and by the way, there's more areas of agreement on both sides than would generally get.
And if you toss in a conversation about the DACA recipients, which is something that Democrats care a lot about, I think that we could make headway there.
All right. Talking about DACA, these are the kids of illegals who, through no fault of their own, are sort of in this legal limbo here in this country. Alexandra, one of the things that has come up here is that the two sides are just resisting each other, and you have these detention centers overflowing, and that's what prompted the president to say, all right, well, then ship them to these sanctuary cities and states. And I think there's a calculation on his part that it's going to put Democrats on defense. What do you think?
Well, I thought when he said that, I thought back to that line in the State of the Union when he talked about the opponents of the wall and the opponents of his strategies on immigration, all conveniently living in gated communities and behind walls and behind barriers to protect their families. And, you know, I think that this is an issue that is much more visceral and personal to people out there than Democrats perhaps realize. I mean, in my home state of New Jersey, there's recently been a murder of a nanny in a Jersey City park. Phil Murphy, when he came in, the governor, declared New Jersey a sanctuary state. It was a big thing that he ran on. And the murder was committed by an illegal immigrant, somebody who shouldn't have been here. And these kinds of stories are not uncommon. They are cropping up in these so-called sanctuary cities all across the country. And so I think when he brings up a tactic like that, he's basically putting it in their court and saying, if you like these policies so much, you have to live with them.
I think that's a dangerous road to go on. The statistics obviously do not bear out that this is an epidemic, that illegal aliens are committing crimes of that level.
Well, you don't have a problem with sanctuary cities.
I do. I live in a sanctuary city, and I don't have a problem with them in theory. I think it's important that people who are here illegally, the 11, 13 million who have been here for years, many of them be protected.
So why not have more in these places so they could be similarly protected?
I think that you're going to see a lot of people who are going to say, if you are going to give people who cross the border illegally sanctuary, that they can come here. There is space for them in this country. The president said over the last week the country is full. We know that's absolutely not true. And when he takes umbrage at the fact that people say that he talks about illegal immigrants as animals, and then he says, you know what, we're going to release them.
He talked about MS-13 as animals.
And by the way, you don't have to be for or against the president to know that a record 1.25 million were allowed into this country legally. So this idea that he's somehow shutting down the borders, that's wrong. And that's an overstatement.
That's not the point that I'm making. The point
is
that
we're not fair here in that regard. And I'm not on this particular policy commenting on it. I'm just saying that the notion is that he hates all immigrants, when in fact record numbers of legal immigrants are entering this country the legal way.
I think that the point is, as it relates to illegal immigrants that are crossing the southern border, that beginning with the campaign rhetoric of Mexicans are criminals and rapists, saying that, we're going to have a Muslim ban, and targeting people because of the color of their skin or the way that they practice their religion, has led to a point where people can safely say that he talks about them in a disparagingly way. I saw the clip as well. It was about MS-13 specifically, right. But you shouldn't be using that rhetoric. You shouldn't be dehumanizing people like that, and you certainly shouldn't be saying we're going to release
gang members. I'll dehumanize gang members all day long. Hey, any gang members, if you're watching, you're bad people. Well, I don't really care about that, but I also think you need to be careful when you talk about conflating illegal immigration with violent crime, because they actually commit
or
less
even
crime
letting it morph, but even letting it morph in. I've seen this over the years. I'm getting a little old, or I have seen it where illegal immigration has morphed into just immigration. And I think that's a very big and dangerous trend.
I think you can agree, though, that in terms of the violent crime, that these situations illustrate the problem. They shine a light on people who are here.
That this woman wouldn't be dead if not for what?
Exactly. And I'm obviously against murders. I'm obviously against that. But
murders, Pat doesn't like any of it.
All right, guys, we'll pick up on some other themes as the show continues. In the meantime, the battle over who sits on the Federal Reserve. There was a time when Franklin Roosevelt was in a heap of trouble for trying to pack the Supreme Court. Now charges this president by trying to put people like that fellow, Herman Cain, on the Federal Reserve, is trying to do the same at the Fed. Steve Moore, his other appointment, is next. Did any of you ever remember the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey and Hal, the supercomputer, opened the pod bay door, and Hal refused to do that? It's when our own technology kind of turned against us. Well, it was played over again this week, at least in my eyes, when we got reports that Amazon workers, thousands of them over the years, have been snooping on users, taking advantage of the Alexa device at home. And just randomly picking out what they were saying and what they were doing. They said that there were no ill intentions here, that they were just trying to help Alexa sort of glean what you say and understand what you say, but did raise questions. Just what is that little device doing in your home? And what is it picking up what you're saying in your home? Kat Timpf is here with us. This is confirming every suspicion you've had about this technology, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as this came out, I thought, man, it'd be nice to spend more time on my couch than I already do and just be able to say, hey, Alexa, do this, do that. But you know what? I don't want it listening to me. And I know how humanity is, and of course they're going to be tempted to listen in on what things people are saying and doing. I might get bored if that was my job. I might want to listen to what other people were saying and doing. So I don't think
they say there was no sinister intent to listen in, let's say, particularly on a Kat Timpf. I think much of this was generated from hearing some guys speaking in Romania about what could have been a rape. And I don't know how that happened, but they picked up on it. They wanted to get more finesse in how Alexa picks up on this and what their obligations are. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure that that's what they say, but at the same time, I don't need them to collect that information about me. I'd rather than have the better experience they're saying they're trying to give you, I'd rather have the private experience, right? I don't want people who are strangers, you know, hearing what goes on in my apartment. I don't want anyone hearing what goes on in my apartment, quite frankly.
What have you got to hide?
I mean, honestly, sometimes I talk to my cat and I have full conversations with him, and sometimes it turns into songs and I answer back for him.
Whatever
I guess I probably shouldn't have just shared that because now everybody, I might as well get the Alexa now. That's my big, you know, not quite scandalous, but do I want the public?
Thousands of workers doing this, God knows, collating thousands of talking hours, right?
Right, absolutely. And what really blows my mind is when people don't really care. I feel like people are starting to accept that their privacy is being violated. They're using these social media sites anyway. They're using Google Maps, even though they know that Google Maps tracks you. People are just starting to accept it. And I don't really want to live in a world where privacy is a thing of the past.
Yeah, but the technology just proves to win in the swap.
Right, that there's the trade-off. Whether you're talking about using Facebook instead of a photo album where they're collecting your data. You're saying, you know, you want to have Alexa turn off the light instead of, you know, everyone, you just do this. Flip off, flip on. My arm's not even tired. It's not that hard.
I hear
to make that trade-off, that's not a trade-off that I've made yet.
All
personally.
Right. Always love having you, kiddo. She tells it like it is. Kat Timpf. Whether she talks to her cat or not, I talk to my dogs.
With my cat.
And they usually answer me.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a lot more coming up, including all the worries and controversies of the world. If they're really gripping us, then why is Wall Street racing to near records again? After this.